Hi, I'm Andrea Pro. I'm a printmaker and I focus on doing woodcut printmaking with a specialty in native species of Hawaii. The first step is to make a sketch. So you're going to make that sketch oriented toward how you want your final print to be. But your second step is going to be to create a mirror image of that. The easiest way to do that is in the computer, or scan it and just do a mirror image. And the reason for that is that when you print, you're going to get a reversal. So you're putting your paper face down on the block, and so everything you do is going to be reversed. And if that's not clear right now, you'll see it when you see the finished prints. So now I've got a sketch that's reversed and ready to put onto my block. So I'm going to take a piece of old-fashioned carbon paper, and yes, they still do make this stuff. And I usually use tape and tape everything down. And I've got, actually this would be a blank linoleum block. So you put your carbon paper on the block, put your sketch on top, tape it down, and just trace it. And I like using a red ink because that way it's crystal clear that I've actually done the whole sketch, and got it transferred. So then you end up with your linoleum block with that image transferred to it. And what you're going to see is that, for example, the number here is reversed on the linoleum block, but when you do your final prints, it's going to show up the way it should show up. So these are the final prints. So now you carve the print, and you're going to be using chisels, and you'll usually want a variety of sizes of chisels. Like, for example, on this one, I used a V gouge that's got a very sharp V to it to create fine lines. And then I also have a more rounded nib on this one that created some of I use that a lot in the background. So you do your entire carving, then you're going to start inking. And I'm going to just draw down some ink so you have an idea of how this works, but we're going to work on an entire print together here in just a few minutes. So the next step is going to be drawing down your ink and inking this plate. We'll do that together in a few minutes with another print. So you ink the entire plate, and then in this print, I also wanted one with a color background. So I got a wood plate with no carving on it, but that has a really beautiful, I don't know if you can see the grain in that, but it's a really beautiful grain. And I just printed like this. I just put the color pink down and printed this in pink on this piece of paper. So I started this off with a pink background, and then I printed the black on top. So I ended up really with a two-color print. So this is the final print that I did. It's the year 2020. In Chinese astrology, it's the year of the rat. So I wanted to create this fun little woodcut rat. Why don't we do one together now? So I want to point out something that's important in printmaking. Whatever you carve away is not going to print. So this is called a relief print because the relief surface is what will print. And if you look at the rat, what you can see is that anything I carved away didn't print, like the flowers and the inside of his ears, and everywhere where you can see a raised surface did print. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're carving, to make those decisions ahead of time. And the other thing about that is, you know what? Most prints turn out really great, even if you haven't thought it through and you end up with a surface that isn't relief and it shows up. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. So I know there's parts of this that are a little tricky, but just dive in. You're gonna really have a good time with it. I've already transferred the image, so I'm ready to start carving. So I want to point out safety is important. There's two things that are keeping your fingers safe here. One is this sticky mat that keeps your block from slipping. That's really helpful. The other thing is that you'll notice that I'm always keeping my fingers behind the tool. Okay, so I'm happy with this, and now we can start printing. So I'm using Speedball ink. It's a water-based ink that is really forgiving, and it's really the kind of ink you want to use if you're working with kids or if you're new to printmaking. It's a really easy cleanup for one thing, and it's just very soft ink, and so it's very easy to roll it out. And so this is what we're going to do, put down a little dollop of it, and then this is my brayer. So in printmaking, we don't paint, we roll. You can get a variety of sized brayers at Akamai Art downtown. I like this size, it's perfect for small projects. And I put down a little bit too much ink there. You want it to be very smooth without a lot of noise. So partly how I tell when I've got the right amount is that it doesn't sound so tacky. There, that's really smooth. I can see that it's adhering to the brayer. Whereas you can see some places down here where it's all kind of a big raised ridge of ink. You don't want that. So smooth it out, and then you are ready to ink. Let me put down a protective piece of paper here. Okay. So you just start inking across the block. And on this particular print, it's pretty small. I know I'm going to need 2 passes of ink over it, and then I'll see if maybe I want to do a third. If you over ink, then you may end up with ink going down into the places where you cut, and you only want the ink on the raised relief part of the print. Okay, I think that's probably good. Let me see. Okay, so now that we've got it inked, we're going to actually do the print. So the paper I'm using today is a Japanese paper called Hosho. You know, to start with, I would just use copy paper. Copy paper imprints really well, and then when you're ready, there are all kinds of fun papers you can buy at the art store. So I'm going to take my paper that I've pre-torn already. I'm just going to lay it down on my block, and I am going to use my Beren to impress the paper into the block. You can see this tool evenly distributes the weight across the block so that it impresses that image from the block right into the paper. So you really want to put some muscle into it and try to cover the whole print. Okay, that should be good. There we go. And there's our print. As you finish your print, you're going to want to find a place where they can dry, and usually that means setting them out in, on an open surface somewhere away from gecko poop. There you go. Okay, so now we're going to try the same print in a different color and just see what happens with that. So I'm putting down blue ink, and again, I'm going to roll it out. You can see how thin that layer is that I'm rolling out. Wow, that's a really vibrant blue. And also you can mix these colors. So you can just put them in maybe just a little separate container, like a little bowl or something, and mix two colors together and come up with a variety of colors. So when you're inking a plate, you want to go back and forth several times in each direction so you don't end up with brayer marks on there. Okay. Let's put a cover sheet on to protect the baren. I'm going to take a little peek and just see how whether I rubbed enough. Looks like I did. So it's worth repeating again that one of the qualities of printmaking is that everything you do is going to be reversed. So you can see that when I laid this paper down on the print, the final image is reversed from what we've got on the linoleum block. So you just want to keep that in mind in the beginning when you're planning your composition. Once you've created a few prints and you feel pretty good with the process and you're making compositions that you like, what's really fun is to start adding color. And here's a really easy way to do that. So we made this black and white print. Now we're going to do a colored background, and here's a really easy way to do that. I'm just going to ink part of this block of wood with the nice green on it, and I'm just going to kind of estimate how much of it I want to ink so that I can lay this print down and have that color transfer to the paper. If you are using a wood background, you've got grain that you can print to. So you'll see how the grain is going to show up on this print. Okay. Giving it a little more muscle will probably make the color a little bit deeper in the transfer of ink to the paper. Okay. Now we have a two-color print. And I think that if I had used a linoleum block instead of a block with such a wide grain, definitely the color would be stronger in the background. So that's something to consider when you're choosing your background color. All right, so we got two prints, and they both look pretty good. Well, I hope you have fun working on your project, and I would suggest that you start with a simple project. I mean, really, look at this print. It took me probably, 5 minutes or 10 minutes to carve at the most. It's very graphic, and you know, it's a nice little print. So your children or you can be producing really graphic prints that are very appealing, and the simpler the better at first. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen with people starting printmaking is they come in with a complicated sketch. There are a lot of different parts that you need to really get used to. You need to gain some skills, you know, some motor skill using the tools. Just enjoy that process. It's such an enjoyable process to just go slow, and you will see your art evolve if you just keep doing it. Thank you. It's really been fun to show you guys one of my actually favorite art mediums. Thanks so much.